is. I think we're onto something here. We got frame cut off in the back, the extra set of wheels removed. We got a pretty good wheelbase going on here, which I could stretch a little further if I wanted to. I left the frame just a little bit long in the back in case I want to move something last minute. If not, I might just cut a few more inches out of it, but it gives me the ability to move the engine and or seat around. And it gives the seat a little bit of an adjustability. But it's coming together. I got to replace some bushings down here in the steering. That's why you have this. And I'll straighten that out. That'll solve that problem. Front wheels should hold air, if I'm not mistaken. I think around the rim on the inside of this one is a little bit of rust. So I have to get in there with a little bit of sandpaper, clean it up, and reseat the bead and get that thing back on there. At this point, it's a matter of welding the frame together, make it solid, and then jumping on the controls. But otherwise, we're getting close. This is coming together real quickly. And yes, open carry is legal in the state of Florida on your own property. Along this lip here, I think I'll just put a couple of really big bolts, drill some holes in, run some bolts through. Just because, if I really want to make it clean, I suppose I could just cut it off and just butt weld the vertical surface and the horizontal surface together with a line. I don't know, I got time to think about that. This is currently the throttle, but that's not going to be used like that. I do need to come up with a shifter. Shifter is this bit here, this guy, and it's really hard to move by hand. It's just super stiff. What I'll do is I'll make some kind of a rod that teeters this way, and we'll throw the thing back and forth, and then of course, because the rod is twisting, I'll have the shifter on the top of it, which will allow me to slap it. Put the seat up here will give me an approximate where I want to mount the shifter. I guess it's going to come up and over this way, and I think I probably want it about this high. But we'll see how that comes together. I should have a seat on it since I trimmed all the metal down. I cut down the surface here, this one, and the tops of the transmission mounts, so everything is flat with the rail. So the seat actually sits directly on the rail right now. And I may want to even drop that down a little further, so I may cut into the rail an inch or so to bring it down even further. I should sit on it and see what I think, but I like what I see so far. This is really coming together. I am just overjoyed. Yay! I did mention that I would like to mount the battery under the seat here. There is a void to do it, so I just have to drop that box on down a bit, and I can put it down a little further. It's a shame there's not enough room for a gas tank. That would be great to hide the gas tank as well. This engine doesn't actually have a gas tank mounted on it. There is a little room up underneath here where I can mount the tank, but of course if I put one there, I'm going to need some kind of pump to get the fuel up to the top. And I suppose a pulse pump would probably do the trick. If not, I can always install an electrical one. Should be something similar to what I put on the Volkswagens. It only produces about, 3 psi. Don't need anything that's too big of a deal. Seat back up where it belongs. I like the fact that it folds up for whatever it's worth. Makes it a little easier if you had to put it in a van or something. Or a bus, if it goes inside a Gregory. Should we go on a trip? Notice no more tree branch. Notice no more dent. That's right. Duckman pushed it out. Hell. Well, here it is. Chose to face the head and exhaust in the reverse direction. Note it doesn't affect the direction which the engine turns in, because the engine will still be turning clockwise no matter which way the engine faces. Unless I did something like turn the engine upside down, I wouldn't have a problem with it turning in the wrong direction. Hell, I could make it 90 degrees if I wanted to. But I figured it would just be wise to have the hot exhaust and the hot engine head facing away from the rider. Just that's a better idea. Just top to bottom, that just makes a lot more sense. This big ugly muffler that's on here is probably going to go away. I'll put on a little short glass pack from like a pit bike or something to give it a little bit of a growl. Looks pretty good. We're gonna keep the electric start on there, I think. And surprisingly, it's still pretty heavy in the front. I mean, I can lift it, but I don't think it's gonna throw any stupid, uncontrollable wheelies. But it will do wheelies, yeah. If you pull back on a steering wheel and lean a little bit, it will pull a wheelie. But once a human being is sitting here, I think it counterbalances it quite a bit.
Welcome back, everyone. This week was one of those weeks where you realize you'd have just been better off if you stayed in bed. For that reason, this video should have gone up last week, but unfortunately that just didn't happen. I've been waiting for parts for the ATVW so I can post a follow-up video and demonstrate some progress, but it's just been sitting there because unfortunately everything that I've ordered seems to be making its way out of China and is just taking forever. I'm getting antsy here, and I really want to see progress on that thing, so I'm hoping that possibly we'll have a video update next week. Well, last week I had my eyes dilated for an exam. My eyes are very sensitive to just about everything, and I'm sure I wasn't the most cooperative while sitting in the doctor's chair. I ended up with one eye drop in one eye, and a ton in the second eye. And about half a bottle in my mouth. Yeah, you heard that correctly. Well, I had to wait several hours for the doctor. The place was an absolute madhouse that afternoon. By the time the doc got to me, the eye drops had started to wear off on the one eye, but the second eye that got far too much was dilated for the rest of the evening. I'd looked like I was crazy, and even more crazy than normal, and like I had gotten hold of the good stuff. And it didn't help much that my mouth was numb and my speech was severely slurred. My mouth had been dilated, as Wild Bill had told me later that evening. But I kept everyone laughing, even the nurses, so I guess it wasn't that bad of a day. But my eyes didn't feel right for the following days later. I was overly light sensitive even after my eyes went back to normal, and I just didn't get around to editing this video, or making any new videos either until several days later. And then when I finally got around to start making videos again, my camera started gobbling up videos. Yeah, that's right, I started losing video footage. I could see that the videos were on the SD card, but just a number of them were damaged or corrupted. Now, the card will write and will read from OK, but it's odd that it would just suddenly give up. It'll just stop working, and it'll disconnect as if somebody had just unplugged it. And then sometimes it would just choose to reconnect itself, so there's some kind of connection issue internal of the card. The pins on it are actually clean, so it's not that, but I've been dealing with Samsung trying to get a warranty on it. The good news is I have other SD cards, so I continued to make videos, so I tried to fill in for the stuff that you guys missed. So yeah, this video is about a week old. Sorry guys, but thanks for sticking with me. So here we are.
Alright, got the end cut off. It should be nice and square. My markings I made with a speed square before I got started. I did weld in a reinforcement here before it rained. Obviously it started to rust, but that piece actually comes off what was the front of the frame, because remember, this whole frame is turned around backwards now. Crash playing. Well, a lot of things have happened since the beginning of the video. I did a lot of recording, made a lot of changes, and shook some things up. Unfortunately, rain kept slowing me down this week. I also had my eyes dilated at the eye doctor for an exam, and needless to say, if you ever had your eyes dilated, you know that it just makes you feel miserable. And I'm still having a little bit of eye trouble right now, as a result of which it's just I'm highly sensitive to light. Even though my pupils look normal, it might actually be in my head right now, but I don't know. I'll wear my dark sunglasses anyway. There I am. Makes me more comfortable, and I feel better. Oh man, Krash is really running around like a maniac. Oh, knocked Boomer down. She's having fun. She hasn't come out in about a week, so she really likes her swimming pool. Really likes it. And it's probably not much of a surprise. I mean, hey, she's a duck, right? But no, she actually likes it more than Boomer or even Skeeter. She really loves her pool. Anyway, getting back on this thing. I made a lot of changes to this. So here's our seat up and removed. You can see how I got the transmission mounted up inside of here. I ended up using what is the fender mount brackets for this very same trailer. If you look down in there, you can see the bracket, and I didn't use them when I built this trailer. Instead, I custom mounted these fenders directly without any brackets at all. So I had those laying around. They're much thicker and stronger steel than what was originally on here, and since this is failing anyway, there's no sense in cutting it off and trying to recycle it. Also, you may notice the frame, the subframe, has been moved forwards about 5 inches this way. Now, formerly, I had the subframe and the main frame just butted up against each other, and I was just going to seam weld them there, and I was hoping that it would be strong and rigid enough. And I thought to myself, well, if that's how I'm going to do it, there's a chance that weld could flex and could break. So why don't I just overlap these two sections of frame? And that's the reason why I left a whole lot of extra meat on the tail here, so that way I could move that around and move the engine before it's permanent. Anyway, as a result, I ended up with enough space under here to get a battery box. See that? This is some of the lost footage when I made that battery box. So my battery actually fits under the seat now nicely. It's a shame there's not more room under there. I'd mount a gas tank too. I mean, I suppose I could make one, but it would be really irregularly shaped. And possibly I could run it along the side here. I'm not going to do that though. I'll probably just stick something up under the steering wheel. The seat sits on top of this platform. I may take maybe another inch out of this just to drop the seat down a little bit more, because I think it's a little tall. I don't like how high it sits, but it might work. I think I'll take a test ride on it to see what happens before I actually get into, cutting up the frame anymore. If I did and I notched this out, I would just take the piece that I cut out, cut an inch out of it, and weld it back in. So that way, essentially, the frame just has a drop down in it to make it work. Now, other thing you see here is we have a shifter, and you can see the mechanism works. This is consisting fully of all parts that came off of the original mower. These are the brackets that came off the original mower. You notice there's two holes because one was for the deck, the other one was for the shifter. So this shifter shaft and the mechanism is all originally from that. It was designed to be mounted up underneath in a completely different way with a lot more linkages and levers and all kinds of crap on it. I've since minimized on a lot of that stuff. And the really weird coincidental thing is I actually just fed the shaft through a hole that was already in the frame. Put it onto a tab that was already welded to the shaft. I just shortened it by about an inch. And then I cut the shifter off the end of it and cut the angle out of it, because this thing had all kinds of weird turns in it, to what you see now. Now, I think it's a little long. I'll probably wind up shortening it down some more. But overall, I'm happy with it. So right now we're in neutral, which is straight up and down. Reverse is one click back to neutral, and then first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and lastly, sixth gear. So it works nicely. The only problem I have is when it hits sixth, the push rod over here that connects to the transmission actually hits the inside of that hole. So what I'm going to have to do is widen the hole a little bit with a Dremel or something. But if that's all it needed, that is just so easy to build. It was just stupid easy to build. In addition to that, because of the way this is all assembled, I can weld this tab in here, and now it's a reinforcement to hold the frame together, so I get a few extra inches of length to bind these two frames together. I was going to build it in a kind of a bolt-on application, so that way I could swap out subframes if I wanted to put a different engine or transmission drive or whatever I've got, and always go back to the one that I had previous if I wanted to. In this case, I said hell with it. I'm just going to go ahead and weld it on there as is. And once again, we got a plane flying over. I don't believe it. I haven't heard a plane all afternoon. I come out here, and now we got planes flying. Man, they ruin every single video. Now it appears they're actually taking off versus landing over my house. I guess the wind is blowing the opposite direction than what it had been. Anyway, this should work out just fine. I am overjoyed with that. This is all welded in here. I have to do a little bit of grinding on some of the welds just to make them flat enough so that way I can move the engine around here if I wanted to, because it needs to be able to go over this, because I may have to move it forward an extra inch or two. Haven't decided what I'm going to do there yet. As far as the linkage is concerned for throttle, it should be easy. All I need is a method for some kind of gas pedal, which could attach to the frame right up here. This is a foot peg, so it'd be real easy to just pull a throttle cable. Real simple stuff. The brakes, however, and you can see them, that little tiny disc under there is actually the brake for the mower. It works by pulling on this lever. So I can take probably one of the original push rods, or pull rod I guess it technically is, run that up underneath the frame to the front, put a pedal down through the deck, and put the lever underneath so that way it can pull that when I step on the brakes. Now that little tiny brake is probably highly inadequate for what I'm going to do, especially for the speeds I'm going to be doing it. So I will probably upgrade the brakes down the road. Inside I have some random discs from motorcycles and such, and some calipers and things. So I'll probably take a rear brake from a motorcycle and adapt it to the rear wheels on this thing. Front wheels, I don't think I'd do that on here because there's just not enough weight on the front end. All the weight's going to be on the back because that's where the driver will be, and of course the engine's right there as well. And then lastly, we have the clutch. Clutch is an interesting setup here because what it consists of is the original pieces that came off the mower. This is quite literally a tensioner for the belt. And when you step on the clutch pedal for this, what it's going to do is move the tensioner so that way the belt slips. So that gives me effectively a working clutch. And that's kind of the way it worked on the mower to begin with. What I'll do is I'll mount this somewhere up here. See, this is where I have to grind down some of them welds so that way this can go over the frame. And this bolt that you see on here, which is holding all this together, used to have another pulley in there. So what I'm going to do is take this bolt and I will thread the shoulder on there so that way I can run that nut all the way down and then cut off the excess. I don't need to have an additional pulley there. It doesn't need to be anything too crazy nor wild. But this should be enough to be able to give me an effective working clutch just by allowing the belt to slip. And yep, that's originally how this thing was designed as far as the mower, and should be okay. I don't see any reason why it'd be a problem. One more thing to talk about. This is a Volkswagen fan belt, and this almost fits on here. Almost. If I play with a couple things, I might be able to just use Volkswagen fan belts as the drive belt on this thing. And those would be nice because I have an abundance of these, and it seems like every time I buy, sell, or trade a car or car parts, I end up with another bundle of them. So it'd be really nice just to use these things and just beat the hell out of them because, honestly, I don't think I've ever worn one out on a Volkswagen. All the years that I've had Volkswagens, I don't think I've ever worn one out. Usually I wind up replacing them because of the last guy leaving one on that was just in such bad shape. So in this case, like I said, I got a lot of these around. If I can make it work, great. If not, I'll go ahead and I'll get a belt from the local hardware store. I have an abundance of belts that are as little as even half-inch increments, you know, so it's real easy to find something that should fit. So that's where I'm at on this here. As you know, it just keeps raining. You can see things are a little wet over here, so I still got to deal with some of that stuff. I still got to cut and fill a hole up here that needs to be fixed because it's rusted. And I'd also, down the road, and I'm not doing it yet, but I am thinking about it, I'd like to widen up the axles. It's a little bit narrow, and I think it's going to be prone to tippage. Although we're a lot lower than a lawn tractor, I still think it's going to be having a tendency to want to roll over when I'm in the corner. So I want to widen up that axle a bit. I'm thinking anywhere from about 4 to 6 inches, you know, 2 to 3 inches on each side. I don't know what is going to be the best way to do that. Since these are keywayed shafts, I could probably put a coupler and an extension on there and use some kind of a pillow bearing to support it, to stop it from breaking off, and then welding it all onto the frame to keep it all together nice and strong. But overall, I think we got a pretty good working chassis here. I am quite happy with what's gone on. I just wish I would have had some more of the footage so you guys could have seen me building this thing versus me just talking about it, because, like I said, I really missed out on a lot. Well, I was just looking around in the yard. I found a whole bunch of extra springs from washing machines and old lawnmowers and just stuff I had around. I got up into the clutch mechanism here, and I rethreaded that bolt and cut it off as I said I would, and created a little pivot point. And I actually managed to find a belt that was just laying in the yard. And I think it's from the mower, Ranchero 302 mower, that this deck came off of. And it happens to fit, kind of silly as it is. This here will be the clutch. There's a lever back here which pulls on it. As you see, the belt goes loose. It disengages the tension on the belt. I drilled a hole over here, ran a spring, and that seems to do the trick. Turn it clockwise, You see, everything's driven the way it's supposed to be. I tried putting it in the first gear and driving it with some force into the end of the trailer over there to see if it would slip, and it never slipped, even with this shitty belt on here. So I think we're in a good spot. I'm going to take this belt off, and I'm going to run that to the hardware store and see if I can match it. That's going to give me my measurement for the drive system, and I think we're good. The only thing I want to build in addition to that on here is some guide for the belt, so that way when I go to step on the clutch and it disengages, it doesn't just fall off. Alright, the damn dog is barking again. I guess it's time for me to stop the video. So licky, likey, comment, subscribe. Don't forget to check out duckshit.net for all my different social media links. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time. You'll notice the engine don't stick out as much as it used to since we moved everything forwards, which is good because it looked kind of dorky. The frame is still a bit long back here, and I could bob it off right to the edge of the engine here if I wanted to. I don't need that much frame on it, and of course I don't need an exhaust pipe that hangs on there either. I'd like to put a glass pack on there so that way it has a little bit of a rumble but not be too loud. But I think the head and exhaust and everything facing away from the driver was actually the best move. But this looks like it's gonna be something good. Alright, it's about to rain again. Getting nice and dark up there. Time to start covering things back up. Well, I just brought the ducks in, and I don't believe how dark it got out here. It's only 4:30 in the afternoon. Wow. You can see the line right there. It's starting to sprinkle. I've already heard some thunder, but there it is. The dog too. It's gonna rain. Anyway, got the dopey ducks inside. I'm turning into. Yep, there it is. Raining. Incredibly dark. This is probably just the beginning of it. But it's been raining on again, off again all damn week long. I think the only day we had any sun was on Thursday.